Okay, so you guys just start.
No, I'm not ready.
Welcome to another episode of the Black Codes Podcast. My name is Trevor Gwynn. I'm one piece of the Black Codes puzzle. I'm very excited about one of the guests that we have today. She is a member of the Black Codes. She is a Black Codes member, and she is an awesome software developer. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Kanesha Patterson.
Hello.
Hey. So really,
that's all I got. That's my intro.
I appreciate you coming on with us and just being able to sit down and talk to us today. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Tacos with a Twist for allowing us to use their space.
Yes.
If you haven't had a chance already, come down to Tacos with a Twist and try many of their signature tacos. I personally have had the shrimp sweet and sour, the shrimp buffalo. Look, I'm finna go off the menu and list everything. It's
Baja fish taco, amazing.
Right. As you can see, we're a couple foodies, so it's been really good here. But we'll go ahead and dive into it now. Kanesha, you've been a member of the Black Codes for a minute now. It was about how long we've been?
Don't date me. No.
Right, we've been here
a minute.
Yeah.
For me, it's been almost 2 years. I want to say Calvin knows. I kind of joined whenever Calvin and Glenn joined.
Yeah.
Glenn introduced me to the group, and I want to say this was about 2 years ago. That I got into the group.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, of course, we want to talk about your journey into tech and like really how you got your start and what really sparked the curiosity for you. So could you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Like what got me into the group, the Black Codes?
Well, okay, so first what got you into tech and then what got you into the group and the Black Codes?
So for those who do not know, I am a graduate of Tennessee State University. I have a bachelor's degree in integrated marketing communications, and I have a minor in computer science.
Okay.
So generally what got me into the tech space was, I want to say first, me having a love or a passion for cell phones. Just knowing how cell phones work and understanding the UI on cell phones, working with people and showing them how to navigate through it, right? So I just kind of found a passion through that, working at Best Buy with people every day in the mobile department. And then that kind of transitioned to me having conversations with some of my best friends who are engineers and in computer science. They were like just talking about making apps, and I was like, yo, what? You can make an application by doing this? I was like, cool, so what do I have to do that? And they're like, yeah, I'm taking a class for it. This is the class. So I just took a class at TSU. At that time, we were learning like C#. C# was like the programming language at that time. It's still a great programming language to learn. I remember my first class, I was like, hello world, and pushing it out on the console. And it looked so cool to me though, like the fact you could actually push that out on a console. And then next thing you know, you're creating images with symbols. It could be, just slashes, asterisks, whatever. When I was able to do that and like make games and push that on the console, like that, it was just so cool to me. So that's what really got me into it, into the tech space, just mobile app design and knowing that I can create from coding.
So shout out to HBCUs for offering like STEM programs, especially like computer science. I know TSU is like, they have a lot of their computer science majors go on to do a lot of things as far as like getting recruited by IBM, Lockheed and Martin,
Google,
Google
Apple.
companies, and that's like wild to think of. And I think it's very important for people to understand like there is a huge future like in these degrees as far as like when you're going that computer science route. Now, as far as the journey in there, can you talk about like some of the classes that you liked and you didn't like when it came to computer science? Well, since it was a minor, did you have to take it? So
as a minor, you really don't have to do the whole curriculum that a computer science major would do. They take quite a few classes, but I was like, you know what? I'm glad I didn't major in computer science. But you do computer applications, you know, programming 1, programming 2. You can pick, I think I had an elective course, so I chose like mobile applications.
Yeah.
And of course you have to like learn data structures, I think is another class that you have to learn, but I didn't have to do too much. I think overall I took maybe 5 to 6 courses, and that was the total of my minor. It wasn't anything major.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Now, outside of that, of course, like with you know, software development and engineering, the learning never stops.
Never.
Right. And so,
never.
Like, and of course, like it becomes up to you because it's such a broad industry, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna narrow my focus down to this because this is where I really find my passion.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? Was it more like, of course you'll have your breakdown with us like front end and back end developers, like what route did you decide to go and what has best served you?
Because, you know, me jumping into computer science or minor in computer science at TSU, I was really just jumping in. I didn't really know what I wanted to do other than app development, and that was like, you're going to have to take a completely different course, you know, or route to do so.
Yeah.
So it kind of just took me researching. I was researching at that time, you know, at TSU, maybe a year in, and found that I wanted to work applications, and I started liking like front-end web development. So I just started searching that. I learned that JavaScript was a thing. I learned about HTML and CSS, and I was like, oh man, this is easier than C Sharp. This is easier than Java.
The new school languages.
Man, this is what I want to do. I only want to work with the front end anyway.
Yeah.
So just researching. I think that was your question. How did I get into it, or how did I find it?
Yeah.
Just researching how to actually make an app and what it takes to make a front end website or a web application, and learning that, you know, it takes HTML and CSS in order to do it, and just diving into it, just doing it.
I think it's so important that you talk about like being able to explore this field to find out what you want, because like really as Black people, we're not really afforded the luxury to explore it, because within exploration, that means mistakes may happen. Like mistakes are bound to happen.
Absolutely.
And within this field, I think it presents such an awesome opportunity to where there's a low barrier to entry. Like as long as you have an internet connection and a laptop, you can become a developer.
That's true.
And so it doesn't cost as much to take the big risk, I guess, in a sense. And so like we had Patrick on, and he talked about his journey as far as like going different routes, and like that is a common thing for people, like just a chance to like explore and be like, all right, I don't necessarily like back end, like there's a, you know, the problem solving and the logic behind it, but you're still allowed, like you still find an avenue where like the perfect amount of creativity and problem solving. Oh, you're front end, you know what I'm saying? And it still doesn't close the door on something. Like 2 years from now, you might decide like, all right, let me go ahead and pick up back end. And I love that so much, like the flexibility of this industry.
Yes, because I feel JavaScript is a good segue into back end web development, not web development, but back end development period. Because you get pretty close to, I don't know, having to do things that you're going to have to interact with the back end. APIs, you're almost there whenever you're, you know, dealing with back end or dealing with database information. JavaScript is almost there. Now, I'm not the best. I'm just going to go ahead and stop myself right there. Like, I'm not the best JavaScript developer, and I'm just going to go ahead and put out there, like, I would much rather do HTML, CSS, and like design than code anything. But I agree with you. I love the diversity of being able to do whatever you want whenever you're in development. Do it, whether it be front end or back end or just full stack. You have that freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit, because there are like, even when you talk about HTML and CSS, there are industries literally built on that. I myself, you know, Bootstrap became very, very close. And you know, as we go down this road together, I was like, seeing that it's not the end all be all as far as like the perfect framework to solve like basic problems, but then other developers recognized that as well, and they were like, hey, we're gonna, you know, you get a plethora of HTML, CSS frameworks, and so like that was really cool as well. So I guess like simple question, do you have a favorite front-end framework that you like to work in that encompasses all the need, like almost like a go-to framework?
I don't, because I don't code in JavaScript anymore, but vanilla JavaScript is pretty much what I start coding in. I actually like TypeScript. So I was doing I like UI UX and kind of ventured into TypeScript a little bit when prototyping some UI designs using Framer JS. It's called Framer.js, and it used, at that time, I don't know if it still does now, I haven't touched it, but it used TypeScript, which is a framework of JavaScript and whatnot, and actually like that. I've considered getting into React. Is React considered a framework?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So React is good. I like it, but I just haven't delved into it that deeply just yet.
So, and I know it's like, so I would consider it a framework. I know some people would call it what, library, like a library as well. And so we'll put both labels on there. Terms. But for this conversation, we can count that because that's really one of the major focuses that I've been working on this year, like getting more into React projects and React native projects, which is mobile, which is uncharted territory for me, I'll be honest. And so the idea of like almost coding something 2 times as far as like Android and iOS development is daunting.
But you can, I feel like I ran into that question before myself, like how do you determine whether or not you're going to code in for iOS or for Android? And for React, I want to say if you're using like Android, what is the I think there's like an Android OS or something. There's a program you can install on your computer where when you go to code for it, it's going to produce the code for you in Androids, I guess JavaScript or in Swift. You know what I'm saying?
Is that like you're talking about Studio? Is it Studio?
Studio.
Okay,
Yes. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's been so long.
We got familiar with it, and it has been a whole sequence just as far as getting the environment set up and getting that started up. I wish there was an easier process for that ramp up as far as like getting projects up and running, because I'm finding out like I don't have the patience for like going through the startup, not only once, but like maybe a few times.
You have to go through it a few times. You know what? I feel like I'm so good at that.
Okay.
Because it's such a struggle trying to get it started, you know? You go through it so many times that you kind of just, once you go through that 5th, 6th, whatever time, it's like, okay, I got it now.
Right. The process becomes reflex and you're just like, well, I know I got to do all this shit.
I know.
But I think the biggest word for me is time consumption, as far as like, all right, Kanesha, we got an hour and like 30 minutes of that is going to be taken up on Android Studio. And I was like, I'm sorry, like we got like 17 lines of code on this thing. And I was like, well, the navigation looks good, so like, what's tomorrow?
Got the navigation now.
I
can put up some. I can do a layout for you. You know, do that, and that's it. I got my navigation. I got my layout. I'm good.
So I want to also talk about. So after graduation, like, did you immediately jump into like the tech space as far as like a corporate job in software engineering, or what was that journey like for you?
I did, actually. I was blessed with that, man. Like, as soon as I graduated, I was getting a phone call from a consulting company here in Nashville.
Dope.
And pretty huge consulting company, honestly. And they reached out to me, and I went ahead and started that interview process. It was a long interview process, probably about a month long, but I nailed it and got in. And I mean, since then, since 2018, it's 2020 now, but since then, when I graduated 2018, I've been in a tech company ever since then.
That is dope. That is dope. So TSU cranking out these graduates. Instantly getting hired. So education, emphasis on education and the importance of that. So that's really awesome. Now, within that corporate space, were there some things that you had to adjust to, and some things that you know that school didn't prepare you for? And were there also things that like we had trained for this, or as far as like some familiarity, I guess some things that didn't necessarily surprise you, as far as like, all right, school prepared me for this?
Man, yeah, both.
Okay.
So school definitely prepared me for just knowing how to, the coding part, you know, just foundation.
Yeah.
I was ready for that and felt strong with that when having to do some coding. So it's like, oh, okay, I know how to do this, right? But then, you know, there were things that I wasn't prepared for, client meetings, having those conference calls, you know, like I hadn't been in I wasn't working with or collaborating with that many students at one time for a project, not as a minor. I think when you major in computer science, you sort of do have to collaborate with more students, maybe for your senior, your last project that you have to, I forget what it's called, but like, I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So when it came to having to have those client calls, being in a meeting in front of the client and presenting your work to the client and why they should use this software. Yeah. You know, just that was all new to me. Yeah. Absolutely new. So I wasn't ready for that, but you kind of just,
it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
It's a learning curve.
You just get thrown into it and you learn it.
Man, I relate to that so much, as far as when it talks about customer experience, like customer service, and really just kind of navigating that space, as far as in corporate America, where I didn't expect to be so close, because I really thought like, hey, I would be working on the projects and not necessarily collaborating with the people. Like the project manager would hand me down like the specs, everything we needed to build. Yeah. And I was like, all right, give me this amount of time and I have your product ready. Right. But you jump on with somebody like directly on the other side, and you need to like be able to effectively, technically communicate with them what you're doing, or you know, whatever you're you know, I guess whatever you're trying to troubleshoot with them at the time, or something that might have broken down. I think that does a couple of things for me. One, it improves my ability to troubleshoot and like identify problems and debug, but also explain things to myself. It's almost like the rubber duck method, where you're just like still talking out those problems, but like they're just like, all right, now it's an actual person. So if I break something, they might get kind of mad.
And you have hard deadlines. Yeah. Like these deadlines for clients and for the company that you're working for, it's no joke. Yeah. Like we're practicing not waterfall. I don't know why I want to say that, but what is the method that you go through?
Like the sprints, type of sprint? Like
sprints and everything, and it's, what is it called? I'm just drawing a blank right now, but
I know
the type of development cycle that you go through, but I don't know why I can't think of it. Swift, it's like Swift, and I cannot think of it. Anywho. Anyways, agile. Okay, agile methodologies, right? So, like, usually, you know, with companies, your sprints are so, like, they may be faster. You may have a 2-week sprint. You may have a 3-week, just depending on your company or client. But a lot of times, you have maybe 1 week to get something done, because that second week you're having to troubleshoot. Your client needs to see it to make sure it works. You have to, you know, go through all these different tests and unit tests. You have to push it through to different environments. Like, oh my goodness, I was not ready for that. I was not ready for that. But you know, once you get into it and you're thrown into it, you actually start seeing what it actually takes to push out code and what it takes to make things work. Especially as a team. Like absolutely. It's pretty cool.
It's so much fun, and you learn a plethora of different things. Like, I worked for a large company and a small company, and one of the things, as far as like what I noticed in a small company, as far as their method of communicating with the customer, well, really your role is like more responsibility within outside of your title or whatever that might be. And so, you know, you might be development, but you might be QA as well. And so you have many aspects of like, oh, so who do we pass this off to do the testing? And I was like, it's you, buddy. And so I know, like, have you experienced that? Like, I know Salesforce is relatively big, and so it's a lot more structure there. But have there ever been any times where you might have even been interested in seeing what another department is doing, and just kind of like, hey, can you guys like kind of let me in, because maybe their process precedes yours, or vice versa?
Yes, absolutely. Functional developers or designers. Any functional role, period, because I am into the design aspect of things, not so much into coding. Wanting to know how things work, what the client is actually wanting. Having that conversation with the client, and then mocking that up into a prototype, and actually like figuring out the process of what it's going to take to get us to the end goal. That's what interests me. And it's funny you asked, because I've just recently asked those questions on my last project that I was on. Like, let me join these conversations or these meetings that the functional roles are having, so that I can see, all right, this is what I should be looking into. These are the questions that I should be asking to the client and to other people who are on the dev team, who are architects, who are, you know, anyone, the project lead, project manager. These are the questions that I need to be asking them, so that I know what I really, you know, should be focusing on, what my end goal is. Because a lot of times as a developer, you kind of lose sight of what the end goal is, what you're really supposed to be doing there. You're just getting these tasks, and this is for me with being on different roles. Sometimes, yes, it's a lot more structured, and I'm not freelance. So as a freelancer, like, you have to do everything. Right. You know, so maybe 2 or 3 people, and you're doing everything. But when you're in a consulting firm and there's a lot more structure, a lot of people have your back. You have a team of people who are doing many things to make that one thing come together. And you're getting these tasks, and just being able to understand what the end goal is kind of difficult. You get lost in it because you're getting so many tasks sent to you, sent your way. You're like, all right, what are we doing again? Like, what's the end goal? What is it that the client wants? And a lot of times the functional team forgets, you know, like, we get lost in what it is that is actually the goal. You have to go back and ask the client, is this really what you want? And sometimes it's not. And you have to scratch what you did and start over. And it's really cool that you mentioned all that. Mainly, I think that is the sign of a good software developer, that you're going out and trying to understand like every aspect as far as what happens before the product gets to you, or, you know, before your project gets to you and after your project gets to you, because we're ultimately problem solvers, and we just want a deeper understanding of what the problem is. And if we can alleviate that for the people coming before us and the people coming after us, like, not only makes their job easier, but our job easier as well. And I think companies like love that. They love that, not only in like as far as like being a culture fit. I know companies kind of try and use that terminology as far as like, oh, okay, culture what?
Culture, what was it? Culture fit?
No.
Oh yeah.
I've never heard this before.
Was it like as far as like just like seeing if you'd be a good fit for our team, in the sense of that. And I think like the curiosity, like a yearning for learning more, and just wanting to, I think that is almost like a big portion of what they want to see. Because there have been situations where I didn't necessarily know the job, but because of who I was, they brought me on, and I of course picked up quickly. And then from there it was just kind of off to the races as far as like everything I could get my hands on, I wanted to learn about.
Like 90% is totally, are you willing to do it? Are you willing to do this? Do you know this? They're gonna like throw questions out there at you, they're gonna throw questions out there at you, and they're like, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? And you answer either you know it or you don't. You've had experience in it, you haven't. And But what they really want to know is, can you work with us? Do you have the personality? Are you willing to actually learn this thing? Because we see you had experience, even though you don't have experience in what we're asking you about, you have experience in JavaScript, or you have experience in this other skill set right here.
Yeah.
Can you work with us? Are you great to work with? That's really all they want to know.
Yeah.
I agree. So being a great software developer, knowing how to solve problems, knowing how to work with different things, or just be flexible as a person and a software developer, not sticking to one thing, that's going to help you go so far.
Absolutely.
Promise you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what has been the favorite part about your current position, or currently what you're doing?
My favorite part of what I'm doing right now? Not doing my work. Let me explain though. Let me explain.
Hold up.
No, that's good. So within my company, we have different employee resource groups. ERGs is what we call them, and we get to collaborate, with different teams. And I'm in an African American ERG.
Oh, dope, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's how, honestly, this is how I was able to venture out and break out into the company and become a better me in the company, because I have a mentor who's Black, I have people who are in the field who are looking out for me and who have my back, because I've helped out with marketing efforts, sending emails, helping generate graphics for them, helping to conduct these interviews, helping to architect these live events, etc. The list goes on. And because I'm doing that for us, in this group that I'm in, not just for Black people, in any group that I decide to be in, this +1, I'm putting myself out there and getting exposure to people who are like top people in the company. These are almost C-level people, but who have access to our CEO.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah. So the fact that I'm putting myself out there, that's the part that I like the most.
Yeah.
When I finally got my mentor, it was night and day. Although she's not in the field that I want to be in, she's still in the tech space. Within my company, we have strategy, we have technology, operations. There's so many more. Please don't judge me on this. There's so many different branches that we have within the company, right?
Yeah.
And digital is another one of the spaces, and she's in digital. My mentor is, shout out to Tianan Stevenson, you're out there. I love you, girl. Thank you so much for mentoring me. But she has helped me just by pulling me into the African American ERG that I'm in. And when I say just having connections, in places that I don't have, having that mentor to be able to be like, you know what, I don't know exactly how to get you there, but she's there to be able to like support me, any of my thoughts, anything that I'm going through within the company, I can vent to her. She's there for me. She may not know how to get me to where I want to go, but she knows somebody if I explain to her, well, I want to do UI UX. Well, I know someone who is in digital and he's at Adobe, or and he knows people at Adobe. She can get me there. So she gives me that contact. Okay. And guess what? He may not know. I'm going to tell you, I've had like 6 interviews with different people just from her telling me one man's name.
Holy smokes! Like
just getting like and getting to the person that I really need to get to.
Yeah.
And it's there. Like I'm there.
Yeah.
All I need to do is just do what I need to do to get into what I want to do.
Yeah, shout out to all the mentors that decide to, allow us the time to be within their presence, take us under their wing, and just pass on their knowledge so we can, of course, do the same thing. Like, because at this point, like, since it was given to you for free, it's easy to kind of pass that down. But yeah, I think that's really dope. Well, Kanesha, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with the Black Coast. Look, I have more questions. Like real quick, so what are some of your favorite resources as far as like a UX UI developer?
Wow, you really put me on the spot with that one. Some of my favorite resources. So if you are a Black Codes member, definitely go to the designer channel within our Black Codes Slack group because I'm definitely linking those resources in there frequently. I've got a few more that I'll probably be linking after this video, but right now there's Adobe Max conference that's going on right now, and it's going on until tomorrow, so definitely make sure you're watching that.
Absolutely.
Everything Adobe, I'm just like an Adobe fan. I love Adobe, all the creative suites, but for UI UX, you'll see on Adobe's website that they have different videos that you can watch and learn how to do a design from start to finish for a specific topic. They'll say, you know, design a landing web page, or design an icon, or design a HUD screen for, I don't know, a car. Different things, just challenges that you can go through. Definitely check them out on Adobe Live, or I think it's behance.net and live. Check that out. And then there's also on Twitter, Black to Design. So definitely check them out. For them, as far as a resource, this is it's a website that was created for creatives, in different backgrounds. But for me, I love just reaching out to people and learning how they got to where they are, or just seeing how they got there. I reach out to them, ask them questions. I'm just not shy to like reach out to someone. That's how you learn.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good.
That's how you learn. So check those out, and I'll be posting more.
All right, dope. Quick round of shout outs. We got a TSU graduate, so I can't forget, you know, the HBCUs, TSU, FIS, Meharry, cranking out quality Black excellence. You know what I'm saying? Also, let me make sure I get these right. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to the Black.Codes on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Hold on, my partner telling me something right now. And you too. You too. Holla at me. Look, all of these are gonna be unique. But yeah, also, I want to give a shout out to my friend Barriana Woods. She runs a website for autistic kids. Check her out at apieceofb.com. Repping the shirt today. Also carrying on the back of our interview with Dr. Teresa Vasquez and Autism Possible. Just making sure we raise awareness for that. And you can check Dr. T out at autismpossible.com. You should also be able to follow them as well. But yeah, that's all that we have for today. Remember, y'all, stick to the code, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Bye.